at our headquarters. We're a virtual wine company, and that means that in today's modern age, you see more and more companies doing this. But we buy grapes from different vineyards that we've had long-term relationships, 30 years with some of them. We make the wine in a custom crush facility where we pay for the space, and then we bottle the wine and then sell it. So we're a company with a lot of possibilities, a lot of different things that we can do. And so with my background being Amador County, we specialize in Amador County wines, and Jana's background is done a lot with Napa Valley over the last 25 years in sales and marketing, and she'll tell you about the Napa brand, which is the Jana brand.
So the Jana brand represents Napa Valley, as Scott said, and we have several different varietals from it. We have Riesling and Rosé and Old Vine Zinfandel, and my favorite, which is the Cathedral. And the Cathedral is a Bordeaux blend from Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot. And that is, Cabernet is from down in the Coombsville region of Napa, one of the hottest regions right now for the Napa Valley Cabernet. And as you can see, we're personalizing our whole portfolio with Scott's name, and then of course it was only fair I had my name. And when this is our very top of the line on the Cathedral, and we wanted to give it a really special name and a proprietary name, because the blend is going to change every vintage. So we decided to call it Cathedral, and the reason we named it Cathedral was after when Scott and I were first dating, we went to Sedona, Arizona, and some of you might know Cathedral Rock in Sedona. That is where Scott proposed. So we wouldn't have a wine company if it weren't for Cathedral Rock.
Okay, here we are in the vineyard that surrounds our home in St. Helena, Napa Valley. And it's a vineyard where part of the blend comes from that goes into the Jana Cathedral. We get our Cabernet Franc from this vineyard, from these vineyards behind us. You can see Mount St. Helena behind me, and we're in the fall. This vineyard has already been picked this year, and we're in December. And you can see just a few of the leaves left on the vines.
Is there a reason that you get these particular grapes in Napa instead of up in Amador? Do they grow up there? Or?
Well, this is Napa wine. The Jana brand is the Napa brand. So Napa produces Cabernet better than anything else. So those are the vineyards that go into this wine. And Amador, which is produced under the Scott Harvey label, the best varieties there are Barbera, Zinfandel, and Syrah. And we will be going up to Amador tomorrow to take some photographs of those vineyards. Here we are in Vineyard 1869. This is the oldest Zinfandel vineyard in the world. We say oldest Zinfandel vineyard in America on our label. But these vines were planted back before 1869. There's a deed that mentions this vineyard as a reference point dated 1869. And so the wine that we produce from this vineyard we call Vineyard 1869. These roots go down very, very deep, 30 feet deep, and it produces a Zinfandel that has characteristics from each layer of soil that these roots go through. So Old Vine Zinfandel in this case is what I would call a multi-dimensional wine as opposed to a single-dimensional wine. And that's what really makes the difference, what makes this vineyard special.
Who was president back then?
Ulysses S. Grant was president, and his name is on the deed dated 1869. He's the one that signed it. Okay, here we are pulling samples from barrels. We do this once a month and do a lab analysis on it, and then decide whether the wine needs anything done to it. This is a Napa Valley Pinot Noir that we're pulling samples of at the moment. Basically, what we're monitoring is the solution, the wine, so that Mother Nature can make the wine. If we know the biochemistry of what's going on, or what the situation is, then we can create an environment that allows the good guys to live in the wine and the bad guys not to live in the wine. So the wine, when it's taking its normal path from juice to vinegar, we're stopping it in the middle where it's wine, where the human species likes to drink it rather than the fruit fly that likes it when it's at the end of its process, vinegar. Okay, yesterday we were pulling samples in the lab, or in the winery, and today we're in the lab running all these samples. And we want to run free sulfurs, which is this thing. This is a cache still for running vinegar levels. Our alcohol is over here in a bulliometer, and here we're running chromatography. And basically what we're doing is we're trying to figure out the situation of the solution of the wine, where it's at, and we're trying to control the environment that the organisms that create the wine for us live in. So if we want the wine to go through malolactic, we'll do things as a winemaker would know what to do as far as maintaining lower sulfur levels, making sure the pH is right so that the organism can live in the solution and turn the apple acid or malic acid into lactic acid. If we don't want it to go through malolactic, or definitely we don't want it to turn into vinegar, then we create situations where those organisms can't live in the wine. So knowing the biochemistry of the wine is very important, pulling the samples we did yesterday and now running the test. Okay, now we're on the third phase of the samples we pulled. We pulled the samples of all the 2007 and some 2006 wines, which are all in front of me. We've done all the lab work on them, and now comes the third phase, which is tasting and evaluating each wine. We do this about every month to 6 weeks. And from all of these wines that you see in front of you, we will produce probably about 10 to 12 different wines. Our Reserve Barbera, Zinfandel, and Syrah, our Red Label, our Mountain Selection, Barbera, Zinfandel, Syrah, our Napa Cabernet is in amongst these, the Cathedral Blend, the One Last Kiss. So anyway, this is, I'll go through all of these, smell them all first, one by one, rate them, and then write a description. And then I'll come back and taste them all one by one and write more description. And that goes into my lab records. And you can follow my lab records from the day the grapes were picked all the way through to bottling, and every time we've evaluated the wines to see what they're doing and to decide what needs to be done to them. Okay, now we're on the final stage. We started with pulling samples in the winery, doing lab work, doing blending. And every single wine that we bottle here, we first taste the blend with dinner. So these are the two blends that I put together earlier today. One is the Vineyard 1869 Zinfandel, and the other is the Jana Cathedral, the 2006 vintage, which is our Napa Valley Meritage Red Blend. So what we want to do is we want to see how these wines match with food. And when you take a bite, first bite of meat, your mouth is craving fats. It tastes wonderful. And then the second bite tastes okay, and pretty much the fats have built up in your mouth. But then you take a sip of wine, and wine is acid in that first sip. Just tastes great because your mouth is now craving acidity because of the fats that are in your mouth. Second sip's okay, third sip, pretty soon you're just drinking the wine, but you go back to the meat and it tastes like the first bite again. So most winemakers leave their blends at the winery. We don't. Every single blend we make, we have with dinner before we decide on the final blend. And if it doesn't work with the meal, then I go back and keep blending and try again to get these wines into the situation we want. Jana has an extremely good palate. Women tend to have better palates than men. So her input These wines, it says JNS Reserve right on the bottle. It's there for a reason. Without her and my input, these wines do not get bottled.